So welcome to this series of tutorials on SecurityHQ's Risk Center. My name's Chris Cheyne and I'm here today to walk you through this first tutorial session. And today we'll be talking about how to create a new risk from a predefined threat profile.
And if you click on the Create Risk button, it's going to land you onto the Analysis Approach menu here, which gives you the available options for the approaches that you can take, again, under the 830 risk management risk framework methodology. There are three different approaches: threat-oriented, vulnerability-oriented, or asset-oriented approach. We're going to jump straight to the threat-oriented approach today and actually start with an actor-led approach. That means an adversarial actor-led approach. What we've done here is provided you, first of all, with a catalog of threat adversary profiles, which will allow you to get a quick start in terms of creating new risks that are applicable to your business. And yet, as you scroll through, you'll be able to see a number of different proposed risks. And if you click on each of them in turn, there's a quick profile description which describes what this threat actor profile is trying to describe for you. Now, if I select one here related to a compromised partner or supply chain type of user, this risk that I'm selecting here is associated with privilege escalation or gaining unauthorized access from a third party, from a partner organization or a supply chain organization. So this is an interesting place to start. So I'd simply select that and click on continue. And what you're led to here is a quick summary of what that profile comprises of in terms of the threat actor attributes here. So this threat actor is an organization. It's a partner organization that we're trying to describe here. And on the right hand side here, you can see very quickly the scoring in terms of the actor's capability, intent, and targeting. We might look at that and say, well, the medium capability, high intent, high targeting sounds about right. You might think that that works, or you might want to edit it, and I'll show you how you might edit that in just a moment's time. This bottom table looks at the other attributes associated with the threat events that actor could potentially orchestrate. So with privilege escalation of a supply chain type of attacker, we're talking about obtaining unauthorized access. That adversary accessing things that they are not really expected to. So here, what we look at is first the relevance. Is it here? We've got predicted. We might say that that's either that works or doesn't work, but you can see all the other attributes here. So the likelihood, the confidentiality, and everything else. So over time, you'll come to be able to judge whether these defaults are going to work for you. And if they do, then great, create the risk and continue from there. If not, then you can edit this detail. I'm going to edit this detail. So we start by editing the characteristics of the adversary itself. So we look at the capability, intent, and targeting here. I can see that it's set to moderate, or a high level of intent and a high level of targeting. And to me, that sounds about right for a supply chain attacker, because you can expect that the targeting is going to be high because they are focused on you as an organization. Their intent or their motive is likely to be high if they're compromised. Generally, supply chain attackers are compromised because the ultimate objective is the customers that they serve. If you look at a lot of the supply chain attacks over the last few years, and their capability may be moderate or high, but the point is that they may already have a significant amount of privileges and access, and their capability doesn't even need to be high. If we accept that or modify it accordingly, we move then on to the specific threat events. In this case, we only have one threat event which has been tagged to this organization at the moment, and that's automatically filtered at the top. You can see that there is one of 13 possible threat events grouped under achieve results. Just as a quick overview here, what you can see with these groupings is really the Lockheed Martin kill chain type stages and under each of them you can see a number of different threat events, and at your leisure you can go through and have a look at those. But in this case, we've got obtain unauthorized access as the only threat event. You might look at this and think, well, I'm also concerned about a number of other threat events. For example, I'm worried about that supply chain attacker causing a degradation or denial of service type of attack, or they might be cause integrity loss by polluting or corrupting critical data. That's absolutely something that might be relevant for you associated with that particular supply chain. But for the moment, I'm going to stick with this unauthorized access for the purpose of this discussion, and have a look at what that means in terms of the other attributes. Once you've selected that, you move on to selection of the actual impacted operational unit. That's under the impact banner here. So here you can select your organization units that are configured here, and we'd recommend deploying as much granularity as you can to describe things like systems or business units or departments or regions. In this case, if I simply select London as a region here, I think that's something that supply chain attacker has access to my London data center or my London region here. And then I click continue. It will then be able to allow me to tag certain systems as well. In this case, I don't have any systems assigned, but I do have a number of assets, or at least one asset in this demo platform that I can tag in to this risk. So now you're starting to really make this risk specific to an individual or set of assets or operational units. If we click on there, now what we have here is the description of the actual overall impact on those assets we've just identified. So that supply chain attacker orchestrating unauthorized access against those tagged assets, this is now the impact that we're looking at. So the confidentiality, integrity, and availability scores are set to moderate here. So this is something for sure that would need to be tagged or edited based on specifics of your organization. Only you will know the impact in terms of the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that system. So you might say, for example, it is that system that we've tagged includes PII data or business secrets or business sensitive information, and actually the impact is really on confidentiality. So we're going to tag that as high, but we'll keep the other ones as moderate in terms of integrity and availability. We then want to look at the impact and in terms of the NIST categorization of impacts, and you can simply edit that here. So if I look at this here, this gives you the high level characteristics or categories of NIST impacts, and in this case we've got we might want to say, for example, tag this one here that says unauthorized access, changes and leakage of internal organization information and infrastructure. That's an impact that we're concerned about. So we'll add the tick box here. Or unauthorized usage of admin credentials. That's something that we're concerned about. So let's tag those into this risk as applicable impacts. And then you might review that and think that that's acceptable. There are pre-configured MITRE impacts which are presented to you. They may or may not be applicable. You can edit or you can add as applicable, again, just by clicking on the edit button here and adding in those MITRE impacts. Once you're happy that you've defined those for each individual threat event, and again, in this case, we only have one threat event, but if you had multiple here, you would do the same scoring for each of those threat events, knowing that each threat event might have a different set of consequences in terms of the impact. Click continue. Next, you want to assess really the vulnerabilities that will need to be exploited as part of these threat events. So what we've got here is two things. We've got software vulnerabilities, or we've got control gaps, things where there may be a complete absence of a management or a technical control that would seek to perform a countermeasure against that threat event. So in this case, you can simply scroll through, and you'll be presented with a number of different control gaps from the NIST 853 control families. You might say, for example, boundary protection. Well, that's not really applicable in this case. I'll unclick it. Supply chain risk management plan. Maybe there's an absence of that. That is a particular failing. You might think, well, my least privilege controls and principles under the 86 least privilege grouping can be reinforced. Definitely, we'll keep that in there, and so on. So only you will know really what your overall control gaps are, and you will be able to click and unclick these accordingly. Moving on. You can select predisposing conditions. So these are really environmental factors that may predispose you to particular risk scenarios. This is quite an advanced feature. So, for example, in this case, we might be talking about a network multi-user, so multiple users, or a single user risk type of scenario. I'm going to select multi-user because I might have a supply chain that has a number of different users. And then finally, we move on to the actual mitigations that will be required to actually mitigate this particular risk. And again, as part of the threat actor profiles, we have pre-configured some standard mitigations, but you can add more. On the left-hand side here, if I collapse this, you can see the NIST 853 control families, the high-level groupings here. So access control being one of the big ones, but these are all of the control families under the NIST framework. Here I can see already that we've got these three sub groupings already identified here. So under the right-hand pane, you can see here that the role-based access control as a mitigation requirement is tagged here. We need further role-based access control to be implemented here, and you can go through the standard and add more as you see fit. And we'll do a separate session on the NIST 853 controls to help you navigate that. If you're happy with that, we then go forward and create that risk. And this is where we can then assign it to a user, set a target date. So in this case, I'm going to set this one for John, and with a target date in the future, based on the complexity of the risk, you would set that target date. I might set this now for 2 months or 3 months from now. I'm going to set this one to the end of March. And then you give it a name that's human readable, commonly understood username. So I'm going to call it supplier X unauthorized access to PII data, for example. Let's assume that was the problem that I was trying to describe, and go ahead and create that risk. So now we've created the risk. It would lead you back onto the risk register, and this is full of test and production data.
So we hope you found this video useful, and remember, we're always here to help. And if you need any further information, please do reach out to us at securityhq.com. Remember, we're here 24/7, and we're always here to help you with any of your cybersecurity needs.